Kimberly McCarthy. Kimberly, a former occupational therapist battling drug addiction, knocked on her elderly neighbor's door in Lancaster, Texas. The neighbor, 71-year-old Dorothy Booth, was a retired college professor who thought she was lending a cup of sugar. Instead, Kimberly stabbed and beat her to death, then stole her credit cards and wedding ring to buy crack cocaine. Kimberly's descent into addiction had transformed her from a respected health worker into someone capable of horrifying violence. DNA and fingerprints tied her to the scene. She was convicted in 1998 and sentenced to death. Her case took on new weight when it was revealed she had been the only black juror-eligible person removed from the jury pool. Critics argued racial bias played a role in the outcome, and calls for a new trial mounted. After multiple delays, Kimberly was executed by lethal injection on June 26, 2013. She was the 500th person executed in Texas since the state reinstated capital punishment in 1982. Her final words were filled with peace. "This is not a loss. This is a win. You know where I'm going. I'm going home to be with Jesus." Virginia Christian. At just 17 years old, Virginia Christian found herself in a fight for survival. She was a black teenager working as a maid for Ida Belote, a white woman in Virginia, on March 18, 1912. During what was described as a heated argument, things turned violent. Belote reportedly struck Virginia with a spittoon and a broom. In the chaos, Virginia retaliated, knocking Belote unconscious. In a panic, she stuffed a towel in her employer's mouth, accidentally suffocating her. Virginia fled the scene but was quickly arrested. Despite being a juvenile, she was charged with first-degree murder. Her trial was swift and entirely decided by an all-white, all-male jury. The verdict? Guilty, with no recommendation for mercy. Public pleas for clemency poured in, but Governor William Mann denied them all. On August 16, 1912, the day after her 17th birthday, Virginia was executed in the electric chair at the Virginia State Penitentiary. She became the only female juvenile executed in the U.S. in the 20th century. In a final letter to her mother, she wrote, "I am not afraid to die. I will meet you in heaven. I want you to meet me with open arms." Lena Baker. Lena Baker was a 44-year-old African-American mother of 3, working as a maid in Cuthbert, Georgia. Her employer, Ernest Knight, was a white grist mill owner with a dark secret. He reportedly held Lena captive for days, abusing her physically and sexually. On April 29, 1944, Lena claimed she tried to leave, but Knight attacked her with an iron bar. Fearing for her life, she grabbed his pistol and shot him dead. She immediately turned herself in to the authorities, but justice would not be on her side. In less than a day, an all-white, all-male jury convicted her of murder. Despite her account of self-defense and community knowledge of Knight's abuse, the court showed no mercy. The judge sentenced her to death. On March 5, 1945, Lena was executed in Georgia's electric chair. In her final moments, she stood firm. "What I done, I did in self-defense, or I would have been killed myself. I am ready to meet my God." 60 years later, in 2005, the state of Georgia issued a rare posthumous pardon, acknowledging that Lena never should have been executed. Her story reflects how systemic racism and gender bias combine to silence her cries for help. Francis Newton seemed to have it all: a husband, 2 beautiful children, and a stable life in Houston, Texas. But in April 1987, that image shattered. Her husband and 2 kids were found shot to death in their home. Police zeroed in on Frances almost immediately. She had recently taken out life insurance policies on her family members, and investigators believed greed was the motive. Frances insisted she was innocent. She claimed a drug dealer, who her husband owed money to, might have been responsible. But the circumstantial evidence pointed to her, especially when the murder weapon was linked to a relative of hers. The court didn't buy her defense, and she was sentenced to die. For years, Frances fought to prove her innocence. Supporters argued that key forensic tests were never completed, and that her trial had serious flaws. Even the parole board recommended a delay in her execution. But Governor Rick Perry denied a reprieve. On September 14, 2005, Frances Newton was executed by lethal injection in Huntsville, Texas. She chose not to give a final statement, only shaking her head when asked. To the end, she maintained her innocence. Her case still raises questions about rushed investigations and overlooked evidence, especially when a life is at stake.